The morning sun rose over Busan like it had for thousands of years. The sea was calm. The sky was clear. Children played in the garden of the coastal orphanage, their laughter mixing with the sound of waves. Kong Daeho sat on a wooden bench and watched them play. He was old, very old. 847 years had passed since his birth, and in all that time he had never seen war. No human alive had seen war. Earth had been at peace for 7,000 years. Daeho was once a military historian. He had spent centuries studying the ancient wars of humanity, the world wars, the colonial wars, the solar conflicts. All of them ended long before anyone could remember. Now they were just stories. Just lessons in old books that nobody read anymore. A young girl ran up to him. Her name was Yoon Hannah. She was 12 years old, with bright eyes and a smile that could light up any room. She had no parents. None of the children here did. But they had Daeho, and he loved them like his own. "Teacher," Hannah said, "will you tell us a story about the stars?" Daeho smiled. "Which story do you want to hear?" "The one about the old wars. When humans fought with spaceships?" He laughed softly. "Those are sad stories, little one." "Why do you want to hear sad stories on such a beautiful day?" "Because I want to know why we stopped fighting," she said. Daeho looked at her for a long moment. Then he said, "We stopped because we learned something important. We learned that peace is harder than war. Anyone can destroy. It takes strength to build. It takes courage to forgive." Hannah nodded slowly, even though she did not fully understand. She ran back to play with the other children. Daeho watched her go. He did not know that this was the last peaceful morning of his life, far above the earth. Beyond the clouds, beyond the blue sky, a fleet of ships waited in the darkness of space. They belonged to the Vela Dominion, a great empire that ruled over 40,000 star systems. The Dominion had conquered 2,000 species. They had burned worlds and enslaved billions. They feared nothing and no one. The commander of this fleet was named Hrothgar. He looked down at the blue planet below and felt nothing but contempt. The humans were known across the galaxy as the Silent Ones. They never fought back. They never responded to threats. Other empires pushed them, insulted them, tested them. The humans always chose peace. To Hrothgar, this meant only one thing. The humans were cowards. "We will teach them fear," he said to his officers. "One strike. One demonstration of power. Then they will bow to the Dominion like all the others." "What target shall we hit?" an officer asked. Hrothgar studied the planet below. He could have chosen a military base. He could have chosen a government building, but he wanted to send a message. He wanted the humans to feel true terror. His finger landed on a small building by the sea, a place full of children. "There," he said, "hit that." The officer hesitated. "Sir, our sensors show that is a home for children. Young ones without parents." "I know what it is," Hrothgar said coldly. "That is exactly why I chose it. When they see that we will kill even their children, they will never think of resisting." The order was given. The weapons fired. On the ground, Daeho felt it before he heard it. A strange pressure in the air. A shadow falling over the garden. He looked up and saw fire falling from the sky. In that moment, 7,000 years of peace ended. He did not think. He simply moved. His old body carried him faster than it had moved in centuries. He grabbed Hannah and pulled her against his chest. He wrapped himself around her like a shield. The world turned to fire and noise and pain. When the dust settled, the orphanage was gone. 347 children were dead. Their bodies lay scattered across the broken ground. The garden where they had played was now a crater. Hannah opened her eyes. She could not breathe. Something heavy was pressing down on her. She pushed against it and realized it was Daeho. His body had protected her from the blast. "Teacher?" She whispered he was still alive, but barely. Blood ran from his mouth. His eyes were dim, but he managed to smile when he saw her face. "You are alive," he said. "Good. That is good." "Teacher, please do not leave me. Listen to me," he said. His voice was fading. Tell them. Tell all of them. We remember. We have always remembered. Tell them. We chose peace. We were not forced into it. We chose it. But if they make us remember the old ways. He could not finish. His eyes closed. His breath stopped. The last military historian of Earth died with a warning on his lips. Hannah held his body and screamed. Across the planet. The news spread like fire through dry grass. Every human on Earth, on the moon, on Mars. On the stations and colonies scattered across the solar system, they all saw the images. They all saw the dead children. They all saw the girl crying over the old man's body. For the first time in 7,000 years, humanity went silent. But this was not the silence of peace. This was the silence that comes before a storm. The silence of a sleeping giant opening its eyes in the great hall of the United Earth Assembly. Chancellor Park Soo-jin stood before the gathered leaders of humanity. She was a small woman with gentle eyes. In her 300 years of life, she had never raised her voice in anger. She had built her career on kindness and understanding. Now her hands were shaking. Her gentle eyes were hard. The hall was completely silent. Every seat was filled. Every screen across human space was watching. Billions upon billions of people waited for her to speak. She thought of the children. She thought of the old man who had died protecting a little girl. She thought of 7,000 years of choosing peace, of turning away from violence, of believing that humanity had grown beyond its bloody past. She thought of all of this, and then she spoke. Today, she said, her voice steady and cold, the Velar Dominion murdered 347 children. They did this to make us afraid. They did this because they believe we are weak. They believe that 7,000 years of peace has made us forget how to fight. She paused. When she spoke again, her voice carried the weight of 7 millennia of suppressed fury. They are wrong. The word that came next had not been spoken in an official human assembly for 7,000 years. It was a word humanity had sworn to never use again. A word from the dark ages of their past. War, said Chancellor Park Soo-jin. May the stars forgive us. War. The silence broke, not with cheers, not with cries of anger, but with something far more terrifying. Every human, across every world, simply nodded. They understood, they agreed, and they remembered. In orbit above Earth, Hrothgar watched the human broadcasts with confusion. He had expected panic. He had expected surrender. He had expected fear. Instead, he saw something in the eyes of every human face that made him feel, for the first time in his long life, a cold touch of doubt. They were not afraid. They were angry, and they were remembering something. Something old. Something terrible. Something that the galaxy had forgotten, but would soon learn again. 72 hours had passed since the attack. Across the galaxy, every species watched Earth with interest. They all expected the same thing. The humans would cry. The humans would mourn. And then the humans would surrender. They had seen it before with other species. The Dominion was simply too powerful. No one could fight them and win. The smart choice was always to bow down and accept their rule, but something strange was happening on Earth. The humans were not crying. They were not begging for mercy. Instead, they were quiet, busy, moving with a purpose that no one could understand, deep beneath the Himalayan mountains. In a vault that had been sealed for 6,000 years, Dr. Shin Yuna stood before a massive door. She was the keeper of the archive vault, a position passed down through generations. Her family had guarded this place for thousands of years, hoping that it would never need to be opened. Now she held the key in her trembling hands. "Are you sure about this?" asked her assistant. Yuna closed her eyes. She thought of the children. She thought of the old man who had died protecting a little girl. She thought of the promise her ancestors had made that this vault would only be opened if humanity faced extinction. 347 dead children felt like extinction to her. "I'm sure," she said. The key turned. The door opened, and the lights inside flickered on for the first time in 6 millennia. What lay inside made her assistant fall to his knees. rows upon rows of weapons. Ships folded into dimensional pockets. Armor that could withstand the heat of a star. Bombs that could crack planets in half. Technology so advanced that it made the Dominion's weapons look like children's toys. For 7,000 years, humanity had told the galaxy that they had abandoned war. They had said that they destroyed their weapons and chose peace. This was a lie. They had not destroyed anything. They had simply hidden it, improved it, perfected it. Generation after generation of scientists had worked in secret, building weapons for a war they hoped would never come. Why? Her assistant whispered. Why did we keep all this? Yuna looked at the endless rows of terrible machines. Because we know ourselves, she said. We know that peace is a choice, and choices can be taken from us. Our ancestors wanted to make sure that if anyone ever forced us to fight again, we would win. She picked up a communication device and called Chancellor Park Soo-jin. The vault is open, she said. Everything is ready. Across the solar system, their secrets were being revealed. Admiral Baek Jin-woo stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Dawn of Sorrow. For 300 years, he had commanded what the galaxy called the Ceremonial Fleet, a small collection of pretty ships that humans used for parades and celebrations. Other species laughed at it. They said it was proof that humans had no real military power. They were wrong. Jin-woo pressed a button on his console. All around him, space began to twist and bend. Dimensional pockets opened like wounds in reality, and from those wounds came ships. Not dozens. Not hundreds. Not thousands. 12,000 warships emerged from dimensional hiding spaces. They had been waiting there for millennia, maintained by automated systems, crewed by AI that never slept. Each ship was a masterpiece of destruction. Each ship carried enough firepower to burn a planet to ash dot, and this was only the beginning. From every human colony, every station, every outpost in the galaxy, more ships were waking up. Humanity had spread across the stars for thousands of years. In every place they settled, they had hidden weapons. Just in case. Always just in case. Jin-woo received reports from across human space. The numbers kept growing. 200,000 ships. 500,000. 1 million. 2 million. His lieutenant stared at the reports with wide eyes. Sir, this is impossible. The galaxy believed we had no military at all. That was the point, Jin-woo said calmly. We wanted them to believe that. We wanted everyone to leave us alone. But we always knew this day might come. What happens now? Jin-woo turned to face the stars. Now we send them a message. On 100,000 screens across the galaxy, a transmission from Earth appeared. Chancellor Park Soo-jin stood before the camera, her face like stone. To the VLR Dominion, she said, "You have murdered our children. You have broken 7,000 years of peace. We did not want this. We never wanted this, but you have forced our hand." She held up a small picture. It showed the face of a smiling girl, Yoon Hannah, the survivor of the attack.
Oh!
This child lost everything because of you, her friends, her family, her home. All because you wanted to make us afraid. Soo-jin lowered the picture. Her eyes were cold. You have 168 hours. In that time, you will deliver to us every person responsible for the attack on Busan, every commander who gave the order, every soldier who carried it out, every officer who approved it, all of them. She leaned closer to the camera.
Oh.
This is not a negotiation. This is not a request. This is your only warning. If you do not comply, we will come for them ourselves, and we will not stop until we have them. The transmission ended. Across the Dominion, the message was received with laughter. High Sovereign Maltos, the supreme ruler of the empire, watched it 3 times and laughed harder each time. These humans, he said to his court, they truly believe they can threaten us. We have 40,000 star systems. We have conquered 2,000 species. And they think a few pretty words will scare us? His advisors laughed with him. One of them said, "Perhaps we should send them another demonstration. Kill a few more of their children. That will silence them quickly." Maltos nodded. Yes, send another fleet. This time, hit a larger target. A city, perhaps. Show them what real power looks like. None of them noticed the intelligence report sitting unread on a nearby table. A report that described unusual energy readings from human space. A report that warned of ships appearing from nowhere. A report that suggested the humans might not be as weak as everyone believed. By the time they read that report, it would be far too late. On Earth, Hannah sat in a hospital bed. Her body was healing, but her heart was not. She could not close her eyes without seeing fire. She could not sleep without hearing screams. A nurse came to check on her. "You have a visitor," she said. General No Tassioke walked into the room. He was a tall man with gray hair and eyes that had seen too much history. For 600 years he had trained for war. He had studied every battle humanity had ever fought. He had prepared plans for enemies that did not exist yet. People had called him paranoid. They had called him a relic of a darker age. Now they called him necessary. He sat down next to Hannah's bed. "Do you know who I am?" he asked. She shook her head. "I am a soldier," he said. "I have spent my whole life getting ready to protect people like you. I failed. I am sorry." Hannah looked at him with her tired eyes. "Are you going to hurt them? The ones who did this?" Tassioke was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "We are going to stop them. We are going to make sure they can never hurt anyone else." "Is that the same thing?" The old general did not have an answer for that. Above them, the countdown continued. 168 hours. 167. 160-6. The Dominion did not respond. They did not hand over the guilty. They did not even acknowledge the message. Admiral Beek Jinwoo watched the timer reach 0. His lieutenant stood beside him, nervous and pale. "They did not listen," the lieutenant said. Jinwoo nodded slowly. "No, they never do." He opened a channel to the entire fleet. 2 million ships waited for his command. 2 million crews stood ready to fight. 2 million hearts beat with the fury of 7,000 years of suppressed anger. "All ships," Jinwoo said, "begin the advance. May whatever gods exist have mercy on them. Because we will not." The fleet moved forward. The stars trembled, and the galaxy was about to learn why humanity had chosen peace. Not because they were weak, but because they knew exactly what they were capable of. The border of the Velar Dominion was protected by 50,000 warships. It was the largest defensive fleet in the known galaxy. For 1,000 years, no enemy had ever broken through it. Species had tried. Species had died. The border was considered impossible to cross. The humans crossed it in 11 minutes. Admiral Rothgar, the same commander who had ordered the attack on the Orphanage, watched from his flagship as reality itself seemed to break apart. Human ships appeared from nowhere. They moved in ways that should have been impossible. They fired weapons that the Dominion had never seen before. The first human weapon was a gravity cannon. It created a point of infinite density at the center of the Dominion formation. Ships were pulled toward it like water going down a drain. They crashed into each other. They crumpled like paper. Thousands of ships died without the humans firing a single traditional shot. The second weapon was worse. Nanoswarms poured from human ships like clouds of silver dust. They landed on Dominion vessels and began to eat. Metal dissolved. Engines failed. Life support stopped working. Crew members watched in horror as their ships fell apart around them, piece by piece, atom by atom. The third weapon was the worst of all. Some human ships simply vanished and reappeared inside Dominion vessels. They did not need to break through shields or armor. They moved through dimensions that other species did not even know existed. One moment, a Dominion ship was fighting. The next moment, a human ship was sitting in its engine room, weapons already firing. Rothgar screamed orders at his crew. Nothing worked. His weapons could not hit the human ships. His shields could not stop their attacks. His engines could not outrun them. In 11 minutes, 50,000 Dominion ships were destroyed. The humans did not lose a single vessel. Rothgar's flagship drifted in the wreckage, damaged but still alive. A human ship appeared beside it. A transmission came through. It was Admiral Beak Jinwoo. His face was calm. His voice was quiet. "You are Rothgar," Jinwoo said. "You gave the order to attack the orphanage." Rothgar tried to respond with anger, but his voice came out as a whisper. "How? How is this possible? You are supposed to be peaceful. You are supposed to be weak." "We chose peace," Jinwoo replied. "That is not the same as being weak. We chose not to fight. That is not the same as forgetting how. What are you going to do to me?" Jinwoo's expression did not change. "You will be taken back to Earth. You will stand trial for your crimes. You will face justice." "Justice?" Rothgar laughed bitterly. "You mean revenge? You mean torture? You mean death?" "No," Jinwoo said. "I mean justice. There is a difference. You will learn it. It's on a small transport ship traveling with the fleet." Young pilot Ko Yunbai watched the battle recordings with tears in her eyes. She was 23 years old. She had grown up believing that humanity would never fight again. She had been trained for exploration, not war. Now she was part of the largest military force the galaxy had ever seen. Her co-pilot, an older man named Oh Jun-ho, noticed her crying. "Are you afraid?" he asked. "No," she said. "I am sad. Sad that this is necessary. Sad that they made us do this." Jun-ho nodded. "I understand. I feel the same way. But think of the children. Think of the ones who died." Yunbai wiped her eyes. "I know. That is why I am here. That is why we are all here." She looked out at the fleet stretching across space. 2 million ships. Hundreds of millions of crew members. All of them volunteers. All of them people who had lived their whole lives in peace. All of them ready to fight for the first time in 7,000 years. Not for conquest. Not for power. Not for glory. For 347 children who would never grow up back on Earth. Yunhana watched the news reports. She saw the battle. She saw the human victory. She saw the faces of the soldiers who were fighting in her name. A reporter asked if she wanted to send a message to the fleet. Hannah thought for a long moment. Then she nodded. She looked into the camera. Her face was still bruised. Her eyes were still red from crying. But her voice was steady. "My name is Yoon Hannah," she said. "I lived at the Busan Coastal Orphanage. My friends are dead. My teacher is dead. The man who raised me is dead." She paused to take a breath. "I do not want revenge. I do not want blood. I want you to stop them from doing this to anyone else. I want you to make sure no other children have to die. That is all. That is everything." Her message was broadcast to every human ship. Soldiers watched it in silence. Many of them cried. All of them remembered why they were fighting. High Sovereign Maltos received the reports from the border with growing disbelief. 50,000 ships destroyed in 11 minutes. The entire defensive fleet gone. The humans advancing deeper into Dominion space with every passing hour. "This is impossible," he said for the 100th time. "The humans have no military. They have no weapons. Every report says so." One of his advisors, an old official named Vardok, stepped forward. "High Sovereign, I believe. I believe we were wrong about them." "Wrong? How could we be wrong? We have studied them for centuries. We studied what they showed us," Vardok said. "We saw what they wanted us to see. A peaceful species with no weapons. A harmless people who chose not to fight. But we never asked why they chose peace." Maltos stared at him. "What do you mean?" "Most species become peaceful because they lose the ability to fight. They are conquered, weakened, forced to submit. But the humans, they were never conquered. They were never weakened. They chose peace on their own, willingly, at the height of their power." The old advisor's voice trembled. "High Sovereign, what kind of species becomes peaceful while they are still strong? What kind of species locks away their weapons instead of using them?" Maltos felt cold. "What are you saying?" "I am saying that they did not abandon war because they became weak. They abandoned it because they became too dangerous. They looked at what they were capable of, and they were frightened of themselves. So they stopped. They hid their weapons. They chose a different path. Vardock looked at the map showing the human advance. But we woke them up. We reminded them of what they are. And now they remember. For the first time in his long life, Maltos felt something he had never felt before. Fear across the galaxy. Other species watched the war with growing amazement. The humans were winning. Not just winning, they were destroying the Dominion with terrifying ease. Battles that should have lasted months were over in hours. Fleets that should have been invincible were being crushed like insects. And through it all, the humans did something that no one expected. They showed mercy when Dominion ships surrendered. Yet the humans accepted their surrender. When Dominion soldiers were captured, the humans treated them fairly. When Dominion civilians were caught in the path of war, the humans went out of their way to protect them. This confused everyone. The Dominion had killed human children. Why would the humans not do the same? Why would they not burn Dominion worlds to ash? Why would they not slaughter every enemy they found? On the command ship, General No Tassioke gave the answer to a reporter who asked the same question. Because we are not them, he said simply. We did not start this war for revenge. We started it for justice. Justice means punishing the guilty. It does not mean harming the innocent. But do they not deserve to suffer for what they did? Tassioke looked at the reporter with tired eyes. Perhaps they do. But we would not deserve to call ourselves human if we made them suffer. Those children died innocent. We will honor their memory by staying innocent ourselves. He turned back to the battle map. We will win this war. We will find everyone responsible for what happened, and we will make sure it never happens again. But we will not become monsters to do it. That is the human way. That is why we chose peace in the first place. The fleet continued forward. The stars continued to tremble, and the galaxy continued to learn what it meant to wake a sleeping giant. 6 months into the war, the human fleet had carved a path deep into Dominion space. Thousands of star systems had fallen. The greatest empire in the galaxy was crumbling like a sandcastle in a storm. But victory came with a cost that no one had expected, Chaplain. Chao Wujin walked through the corridors of a Dominion space station that had just been captured. He was a man of faith, a spiritual guide for the soldiers who fought and died in this war. For 300 years, he had counseled people through their darkest moments. He thought he had seen everything. He was wrong. The station was a labor camp. Millions of beings from dozens of species were held here in cages barely large enough to stand in. They were thin. They were sick. They were broken. Many of them had been born in these cages. They had never known freedom. Wujin knelt beside a cage holding a creature that looked like a child. It had 4 eyes, each one filled with pain and confusion. You are free now, he said softly. We are going to help you. The creature did not understand his words, but it seemed to understand his kindness. It reached through the bars and touched his hand. Wujin cried. He had not cried since he was a young man, but standing in that place of suffering, seeing what the Dominion had done to innocent beings for thousands of years, he could not hold back his tears. This scene repeated itself on every world the humans captured. Labor camps, breeding facilities, experimentation centers. The Dominion had built an empire on the suffering of billions. They had treated other species like animals, like tools, like things to be used and thrown away. The human soldiers who witnessed these horrors felt their anger growing. It was no longer enough to defeat the Dominion. They wanted to destroy it. They wanted to burn every Dominion world to ash. They wanted revenge for every innocent being who had suffered under alien rule. Imdasam, tactical officer on one of the lead ships, felt this anger too. She had seen things that would haunt her for the rest of her life. Children bred for hard labor. Elders worked to death. Entire species driven to extinction because they were no longer useful. One night, she stood in the observation deck staring at the stars. A young soldier approached her. Sir, the soldier said, why do we not just destroy them all? After what they have done, they deserve nothing less. Dasam did not answer for a long time. She thought of the orphanage. She thought of Hannah. She thought of the 347 children whose deaths had started this war. Do you remember why we are fighting? she finally asked. For the children, the soldier said. For justice. Yes, for the children. For justice. Dasam turned to face him. Tell me, what would those children think if they saw us burning cities? What would they think if they saw us killing innocent Dominion civilians who had nothing to do with the attack? The soldier hesitated. I do not know. I do, Dasam said. They would be ashamed of us. They would look at us and ask, how are you any different from them? How are you any better? She put a hand on the young soldier's shoulder. We are fighting to protect the innocent. All innocents. Even the ones who belong to our enemy. The moment we forget that, the moment we start killing without thought, we become the very thing we are trying to destroy. The soldier lowered his head. It is hard, sir. It is so hard to show mercy after everything we have seen. I know, Dasam said gently. Mercy is always harder than hate. That is what makes it valuable. Chancellor Park Soo-jin issued a new order to the fleet. It was called the Doctrine of Proportional Response. The rules were simple and absolute. Military targets were valid. Soldiers who fought could be killed. Commanders who gave orders could be captured and tried. But civilians were to be protected at all costs. Cities could not be bombed. Infrastructure could not be destroyed. Food and medicine supplies could not be touched. Any soldier who violated these rules would be punished harshly. Some soldiers complained. They said the rules were too soft. They said the enemy did not deserve such kindness. General No Tasiok answered their complaints personally. You are right, he told them. The enemy does not deserve our kindness, but we deserve to give it. We deserve to look at ourselves in the mirror and know that we fought with honor. We deserve to tell our children and grandchildren that we won this war without losing our souls. His words spread through the fleet. The complaints stopped. The soldiers fought harder than ever, but they fought cleanly. They became liberators, not conquerors. They freed the enslaved. They healed the sick. They fed the hungry, and slowly, the galaxy began to change. The species that had been crushed under Dominion rule started to rise up. They had seen the human fleet. They had seen that the Empire could be beaten. For the first time in centuries, they dared to hope. Rebellions broke out on 1,000 worlds. Dominion soldiers found themselves fighting not just humans, but their own former slaves. The Empire that had seemed invincible was now fighting a war on every front. High Sovereign. Maltos watched his power crumble day by day. His advisors begged him to surrender. His generals told him the war was lost. His own people were starting to whisper that perhaps the humans were right. Finally, after losing half his empire, he agreed to talk. A meeting was arranged on a neutral station. Maltos brought his finest diplomats. He expected the humans to demand territory, resources, tribute. That was how empires worked. That was what conquerors always wanted, but the humans surprised him once again. Chancellor Park Soo-jin sat across from him. Her face was tired, but determined. She had not slept well in months. The weight of leading humanity through its first war in 7,000 years had aged her in ways that medical science could not repair. You want to surrender? She said. Good. Here are our terms. Maltos leaned forward. Name your price. Worlds, resources. We will give you whatever you want. We do not want your worlds, Soo-jin said. We do not want your resources. We do not want your empire. Maltos blinked in confusion. Then what do you want? We want the ones who gave the order. Soo-jin placed a list on the table. Everyone involved in the attack on Busan, the commanders, the soldiers, the officials who approved it, all of them. Hand them over, and the war ends today. That is all? That is all we ever wanted. Soo-jin looked at him with eyes that held no hate, only sadness. You killed our children. You forced us to break 7,000 years of peace. You made us remember how to fight. All of that, all of this destruction and death, just to prove that you were strong. She shook her head slowly. You were never strong. True strength is not hurting others. True strength is choosing not to hurt them when you easily could. We had the power to destroy your empire before you ever attacked us. We chose not to. That was our strength." Maltos stared at her. For the first time, he understood something that had confused him since the war began. The humans were not fighting to conquer. They were not fighting for power or glory. They were fighting because they had to, because their children had been killed, because their peace had been broken, and they wanted nothing more than to go back to that peace. "You will have them," Maltos said quietly. "Everyone on the list. You will have them within 1 week." Itsujin nodded. "Then the war is over." She stood up to leave. At the door, she paused. "One more thing, High Sovereign. After this, we will be watching. Not just you, everyone. If any species ever attacks human civilians again, if any empire ever thinks that our peace is weakness, we will remember this war. And we will come again." She looked back at him one last time. "You do not want to be monsters. Please, do not make us become one." Then she was gone, and Maltos was left alone with the ruins of his empire and the terrible knowledge of what he had awakened. 1 year had passed since the attack on Busan. The war was over. The Villar Dominion had surrendered completely. The criminals responsible for the orphanage attack had been handed over. The human fleet had returned home. But before peace could truly return, there had to be justice. The trial was held on Earth, in a great hall built specifically for this moment. Representatives from every species in the galaxy were invited to watch. For the first time in history, humans would sit in judgment of another species. The whole universe wanted to see what would happen. 217 beings stood trial. They ranged from the highest commanders to the lowest soldiers. Every single person who had played a role in the attack was there. Admiral Rothgar stood at the front, his head bowed in shame. The judges were human, but the rules were fair. Every accused being had a defender. Every piece of evidence was examined carefully. The trial lasted 3 months. Every moment was broadcast to billions of watchers across the stars. In the end, 217 were found guilty. The galaxy waited to see what the humans would do. Most species expected executions. The Dominion had killed children. Surely the punishment would be death, but the humans surprised everyone one more time. Chancellor. Park Soo-jin stood before the convicted criminals. Her voice was calm and steady. "You have been found guilty of crimes against humanity," she said. "You killed 347 children. You broke 7,000 years of peace. You caused suffering beyond measure." She paused. The hall was completely silent. "For these crimes, you deserve death. Many of my people want you dead. Many of them would kill you themselves if they had the chance." She shook her head slowly. "But we will not kill you. Death is too easy. Death means you escape the consequences of what you have done. Death means you never have to truly understand the pain you caused." She turned to face the judges. "These criminals are sentenced to serve in human orphanages for the rest of their natural lives. They will care for children who have lost their parents. They will feed them, clothe them, comfort them when they cry, and hold them when they are afraid." A murmur went through the hall. This was not what anyone expected. "You destroyed children," Soo-jin continued. "Now you will spend your lives protecting them. You will see their faces every day. You will learn their names. You will watch them grow. In every moment you will remember what you took from the children of Busan." She looked directly at Rothgar. "You wanted to teach us fear. Instead, we will teach you something far more painful. We will teach you love. We will teach you what it means to care for the innocent. And that knowledge will haunt you far more than any execution ever could." The sentence was carried out. 217 war criminals were sent to orphanages across Earth. They were watched constantly. They were never allowed to be alone with children. But they worked. They cleaned. They cooked. They did every humble task that kept the children safe and healthy. At first, they resisted. They complained. They said this was beneath them. They said they would rather die, but slowly, over months and years, something changed. Rothgar was assigned to the rebuilt Busan Coastal Orphanage. He worked in the kitchen at first, then in the gardens. Every day he saw the memorial to the children who had died. Every day he walked past the names carved in stone, 347 names. 347 lives cut short because of his order. One day a little boy fell and scraped his knee. Hrothgar was the closest adult. Without thinking, he picked the boy up, cleaned his wound, and held him until he stopped crying. When the boy smiled at him and said thank you, Hrothgar felt something break inside his chest. He went to his room that night and cried for hours. He finally understood. Hannah was now 13 years old. She had been chosen to speak at the first anniversary memorial. She stood before thousands of people in front of cameras that broadcast 2 billion more. She did not speak about revenge. She did not speak about hate. She did not even speak about the war. Instead, she read names, 347 names. Every child who had died beside her. She spoke each name slowly and clearly. She told a small story about each one. Their dreams. Their favorite games. Their silly habits. Their beautiful smiles. It took 3 hours. No one moved. No one spoke. The whole galaxy listened in silence. When she finished, her voice was hoarse but steady. They can never come back, she said. Nothing we do will bring them back. No punishment, no war, no revenge will make them alive again. They are gone forever. She looked out at the crowd. But we remember them. And now you remember them too. That is all I ever wanted. That is all they deserve. To be remembered, not as victims, not as numbers, as children, as people, as friends who I will miss for the rest of my life. She stepped down from the stage. The silence lasted a long time. Then, slowly, people began to cry. 10 years passed. Hannah was 23 now. She had grown into a strong woman. She worked at the rebuilt orphanage, caring for children just as Deho had once cared for her. She never forgot him. She never forgot any of them. One afternoon, she was working in the garden when a visitor arrived. It was Hrothgar. He had served his sentence. He was free to go, but he had not left. He walked up to her slowly. His face was different now. The cruelty was gone. The pride was gone. In its place was something softer, something humbler. Came to say goodbye, he said. I am going home today. Hannah nodded. I know. I also came to say. He stopped. The words were hard to find. I came to say that I understand now. What I destroyed? What I took? I understand you? Yes. His voice cracked. Those names you read at the memorial? I know all of them now. I have memorized every single one. I will carry them with me until I die. Hannah looked at him for a long moment. Then she said, that is all we ever wanted. She reached out and put a hand on his shoulder. The same gesture Deho had made to her so many years ago. Go home, she said. Tell your people what you learned here. Tell them about the children. Tell them about mercy. Tell them what humans really are. Hrothgar bowed his head. Tears fell from his eyes. I will, he whispered. I promise. I will. He turned and walked away. At the gate of the orphanage, he stopped and looked back one last time. Hannah was already playing with the children, her laughter mixing with theirs. He watched for a moment, then he left above Earth. The human fleet rested in dimensional space, silent, patient, eternal, ready to wake if they were ever needed again. But no one wanted to wake them. The galaxy had learned its lesson. The species that had once called humans the silent ones now called them by a new name, the sleeping giants, and everyone knew better than to disturb their sleep. Chancellor Park. Sujin gave one final speech on the 10th anniversary of peace. She was old now, even by human standards. Her hair was white. Her hands trembled. But her voice was still strong. We did not want this war, she said. We never wanted it. For 7,000 years, we chose peace. We locked away our weapons. We turned our backs on violence. We believed we had grown beyond it. She smiled sadly. We were right. And we were wrong. We had grown beyond wanting war, but we had not grown beyond needing it. Sometimes terrible things happen. Sometimes evil must be stopped. Sometimes the only way to protect the innocent is to fight. She looked out at the crowd. But we learned something else too. We learned that how you fight matters as much as why you fight. We could have destroyed the Dominion. We could have burned their worlds and killed their people. We had the power. We had the anger. She shook her head. But we did not. We fought with honor. We showed mercy to the innocent. We punished the guilty, but we did not become them. And in the end, we won something more important than a war. We won our souls. She raised her hand toward the sky. Let this be our promise to the galaxy. We will always choose peace. We will always try to solve problems without violence. We will always reach out with open hands before we reach for weapons. Her voice hardened. But if you hurt our children, if you force us to remember what we are capable of, if you wake the sleeping giants, ... She lowered her hand. Then may the stars have mercy on you, because we have learned that mercy is the greatest strength of all. But even the merciful have limits, and you do not want to find ours. The speech ended. The crowd dispersed. Life went on. In the garden of the Busan Coastal Orphanage, children played in the sunshine. Their laughter echoed across the water. The memorial stood nearby, covered in flowers, 347 names. 347 children. Never forgotten. Always remembered and above them. Humanity watched over the galaxy, silent, peaceful, patient, hoping they would never have to wake again, but ready, always ready if they did.